Well done, Tom. Well, keeping Tom's talk in mind, I guess for those of you out there watching over the internet, if you come from a left-wing egalitarian point of view, you might want to go for a jog around the neighborhood or something else for the next 20 minutes or so while I unleash our final luncheon speaker upon you. Marc Morano is executive editor and chief correspondent for the award-winning ClimateDepot.com, a global warming and eco-news center founded in 2009. He and the website have attracted the attention of a wide range of media outlets, including Newsweek, Rolling Stone, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and Esquire. In 2010, Morano received the Accuracy in Media Journalism Award for his key role in reporting on the ClimateGate scandal. Was given an award by Doctors for Disaster Preparedness for demonstrating courage and achievement in defense of scientific truth and freedom. Was inducted into Town Hall Magazine's Town Hall of Fame, and is single-handedly responsible for all the police and riot gear surrounding this hotel, protecting us from them all. Ladies and gentlemen, Marc Morano.
Where's the clicker? Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm with Climate Depot. Used to be with Senator James Inhofe of the Environment and Public Works Committee, and James Inhofe, probably the man most responsible in Washington, is the man most responsible, the only one who stood up to man-made global warming fears beginning in 2003 when he was the chairman, and he was all alone, and he turned the tide. One of the proudest things I've done. I'm going to show you a clip. Go to the next. Does anyone have the clicker around here? Was there a clicker to change slides? Oh. Didn't see it. There we go. Okay. We just died. Okay. Toxic. Just to add to this last week, or a couple weeks ago, Andrew Revkin of the New York Times has... There we go. What am I doing wrong here? There we go. Gotcha. Andrew Revkin of the New York Times said, Climate Depot, the website I run, is divisive and toxic. And he says that it gets picked up, amplified. Now, I don't know, this is maybe seem inappropriate now after Tom's appeal to the left and the middle, but I really do try. You know, I've worked with Dennis Rancourt, actually did a long interview with him about, he's a left-wing environmental scientist in Canada, a physicist who's published peer-reviewed papers on The Sun. He says that global warming is nothing more than a convenient problem made up by the first world middle class, as far left as you get. So there's a lot coming over, and of course we've had other defections like that. I have a whole report on it. But I want to show you, but first start, there's a 4-minute clip of me being attacked and debating in an Australian TV documentary that just aired last month. This will give you an idea of where I think the state of the debate is, and you can love it or hate it, but give it a watch here. It's 4 minutes long, and then I'll come back and talk to you.
A popular skeptic news website, and he's the man credited with bursting the climate belief bubble in the US.
Nick, I wanted to say I'm quite surprised that you brought me to meet Marc, because I know in Australia people haven't heard of him, but in the US I feel like he's actually been quite discredited because he misrepresents scientists, he's been shown to just make things up, and most worryingly to me, he publishes scientists' email addresses on his website under pictures of Hitler and encourages his readers to then email them, and then they get death threats. So I think that I'm happy to listen to what Marc has to say today, but I'm not going to engage in point-to-point debate.
Well, it's a very aggressive opening, Anna, and I'm sorry if you're taking an approach, and I'm happy for Marc to respond to that, but I think it is instructive if you really want to be open-minded about where this whole debate is at, to talk to someone like Marc who's been actively involved in this issue. What the US does is critical to whether the world is ever going to do anything about CO2 emissions.
Well, you know I'm happy to debate any legitimate climate scientist. Marc is not a climate scientist, and I feel that the tactics he uses aren't even helpful to your side of the debate.
What a cop-out, Anna. You say you don't want to debate. Is that because you don't know if you have the science on your side? Your reference to the death threats, I proudly post the publicly available emails of scientists who make absurd claims, and I just help bring the public to these scientists who can finally hear the anger, the frustration, the intellectual arguments against them. The point is not to send abuse to scientists. The point is they can hear from the public, and of course, any public figure is going to get a percentage of abuse. Where we are now in 2011 with the whole global warming debate, I argue that from A to Z, the man-made global warming movement has literally egg on their face. And I'm talking from the Arctic, which is now 9,000 Manhattans over the low point of 2007. Sea level, which, contrary to predictions of it accelerating, has actually dropped, an historic drop, according to the European Space Agency and NASA. Polar bears at or near historic population high. Global temperatures that hit their high point in 1998. Claims of 2005, 2010 being the hottest years are based on hundreds of a degree Fahrenheit. It's a political statement. You can't even get a margin of error to even approach what they're claiming. 111 countries, Gallup did a survey. The majority of the human race isn't afraid of global warming. Anna, you should not be affiliated with a movement that proved itself subprime science, subprime economics, and subprime politics. You are the face of one of the greatest threats of our liberty, and that is intellectual, international bean counters trying to control average people's lives because they think they know better how people should live, because if people are left to their own devices, we'll somehow destroy the planet. It is a mockery. You've been had. You need to go back and re-examine your conscience, Anna.
My conscience?
Conscience.
I'm pretty conscious, and I have looked at the evidence.
Your intellectual conscience. I'm getting silence.
No response to that.
I'm getting silence here. I'm trying to be as personable and likable as I can be.
And I'm curious, you don't want to discuss anything at all?
I'm really happy to listen to what Marc has to say, but as I said at the start, I'm not going to be engaging in point-to-point debate because he is known for making things up.
What did he make up?
Do a simple Google search, you will find hundreds of examples.
What did you make up, mate?
I don't know. I can't defend myself against non-attacks, is what she's doing. Basically, she's saying I'm a liar, so she won't talk to me.
Look, it's a real problem in this debate that those of us who are, you know, not prepared yet to be convinced that man is causing dangerous global warming just get attacked personally all the time.
Nick, how can you say that yet have brought me to the worst of the worst Republican attack dogs? I would have thought that you, of all people, would pick a different kind of spokesperson to take me to in Washington.
Well, I have enormous respect for Marc. I think he runs one of the most interesting websites there is on this issue. He's done enormous work in Congress on exposing a lot of the exaggeration. No, look, I really want to thank you, Marc, for giving up your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. Enjoyed it. Nice meeting you.
Thanks for taking the
Thank
time.
you. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Good on you, mate.
I was just...
That is the state of our debate today. Now, she called me a GOP attack dog. I really don't look at this as a partisan issue. If anything, I probably attacked more Republicans than I have Democrats on this issue. And I'll be talking about the GOP nominee, Mitt Romney, here in a minute. But, you know, in terms of public debate, that was a rare moment. That was a nationally broadcast Australian Broadcast Corporation, ABC, in Australia, primetime, big budget special that they worked on for almost a year, and high ratings, got a lot of controversy. The United States would never put something like that on that we're aware of. You know, maybe Fox News is the only place you can get it. And repeatedly, we've tried to debate on Fox News. I've even had left-wing shows and CNN try to arrange debates, but they won't get anyone from the other side, and we'll get into that because they can now consider us uniformly to be the equivalent of Holocaust deniers, if you're a global warming skeptic. I referenced the A to Z report. I was in Durban, South Africa, with CFACT and Lord Monckton, and we actually presented this report, the A to Z report, which was Climate Detour's report. We went through every single issue at that event, and it's just fascinating to look at it because just from a few years ago, everything from Mount Kilimanjaro to the extreme weather claims to the hurricane claims, it's all either not panning out or going the other way. And this is something I'm going to talk a little bit about public opinion poll. I love this quote from Richard Lindzen. Ordinary people see through man-made climate fears, but the educated are very vulnerable. And I think maybe one of Tom Harris's charts could explain that a little better. But Gallup polling, majority of the human race doesn't see it as a threat. And this is the most shocking one. This is updated. This is 2012, just came out about a month ago, maybe mid-March. Americans among environmental issues. This is important because Al Gore and a lot of the warmists in the media will tell you it's the greatest threat we face, greater than terrorism, economics, any other societal problem. But among environmental problems, the public isn't buying it. They put pollution of water, air pollution, species extinction, deforestation, anything above man-made global warming. It's dead last among environmental issues. That needs to be expanded upon and explored and trumpeted because people, if they think about the environment, the last thing they're thinking about is man-made global warming. John Kerry, Larry Bell actually made this quote. This is what's happening. The climate bill sponsors get this shift in public opinion, and I think the shift in public opinion is in large part based on the fact that the science is slipping from them. You can't talk about climate, people just turn off. It's extraordinary. Obama drops all talk of climate change as it fizzles. Climate is dead as a major political issue. Now, it's not truly dead, because I'll get to an EPA in a minute. Former catastrophist. That's a made-up word, but that's James Lovelock. And again, Larry Bell mentioned this, a few breeding pairs in the Arctic. And then in 2012, oops, never mind, that's Gilda Radner from Saturday Night Live. He reverses himself, says we don't know, we thought we knew 20 years ago. The failure, I argue, is very simple. It's a movement that had Al Gore, love him or hate him. He's one of the most divisive political figures in the history of the, possibly in the history of our country, because it's one of the closest presidential elections. You can't have him leading this alleged scientific, nonpartisan movement. And then to have the United Nations, in the words of John Kerry, as your gold standard of science isn't going to fly. And that's one of the things that just the public, the American public, just rejects the United Nations. It's scandal-ridden. They don't trust it. To turn them into the source of the science was a PR nightmare. So the two combinations of those guaranteed this movement was doomed to failure. Will the GOP nominee Romney stay strong? That's the famous shot of Nancy, well, eHarmony was sort of added in there for humor, but of Nancy Pelosi and Newt Gingrich, back when Newt Gingrich was a believer, then of course he reversed himself. We can't let this happen. And here's the problem right now. Mitt Romney's talking the right way now in terms of he sounds like he understands the science. He now says he's not sure how much is man-made. But his book, which came out in 2011, says that scientists were unanimous in blaming it on global warming. He got praised by Al Gore. He was singled out as the only Republican, and then later, what's his name, the Republican who got 1% from Utah, Huntsman. He was the other one that Al Gore praised. But he says good for Mitt Romney. So Romney's been praised by him. Romney had John Holdren as one of his science advisors when he was in Massachusetts. And just as an aside, John Holdren in 2009 claimed we were in danger of losing Arctic ice in the winter. This is the man's level of understanding. He actually went on and said if we lose summer sea ice, we could lead not very long to lose winter sea ice as well. And not a lot of people know this, which is just kind of a wacky thing to say to start getting people worried about losing Arctic winter ice completely. Can't get back to Bush. Now, I'm trying to be nice. I'm not trying to attack Bush, but people say, well, he stopped us from cap and trade. He stopped us from a UN treaty. Well, so did President Obama. Bush basically he had a lot of other priorities. He's fighting a war on terrorism, economic issues. So he Republicans tend to just say, we'll toss as a favor, we'll toss to the media and the environmentalists, we'll toss the environmental issue overboard. But Bush allowed all the rubber stamping of UN science reports and the funding. Romney is now being supported by many of the same people. And the worry is he's going to recycle Bush's global warming policies. And I'll quote here, a climate muddle, a hodgepodge of subsidies that did nothing but waste money. I'm not arguing Romney's going to be Al Gore. I'm not arguing Romney's going to go out and actively pursue stuff. But I expect him to be weak unless we put pressure on him. He has Bush-era bureaucrats. Green donors are betting on Romney's flip-flop, that if he's elected, some big donors are betting on it. He's assembled James Connaughton, who we cannot allow back in the White House. This was a man who went to UN conferences and praised the IPCC reports, a committed warmist. There's talk that he may head a Romney EPA. Potential vice presidents. Condoleezza Rice, by the way, one of her laments from being in the Bush administration is we never pursued Kyoto policy, ratification of Kyoto. She's mentioned as one of the top choices for vice president. Chris Christie of New Jersey, another one recommended or highly always mentioned as a vice presidential pick. He flip-flopped, and I was told by his advisor that he did it for political reasons, just to sort of, he was doing controversial stuff. He needed something to throw over. They always throw over climate, especially in a state like New Jersey. He was just terrified of it. He had been a skeptic before that. My key is you don't have to, as a politician, you don't have to go out and start citing peer-reviewed studies, get involved in the weeds like some people do, like Senator Inhofe does. You have to really be ready to do that, or you end up saying things that are wrong. This is the simplest point. I think Nair Shaviv and other panels wouldn't have any problem with this. It's sort of summation of what a lot of people said. This is UK Philip Stott. It's hundreds of factors influencing the climate. The idea we can manage it, that CO2 is the tail that wags the dog, is just not scientifically tenable. And if we keep it simple, the American public, even the left wing and even the center, I think will understand that and keep politics out of it. The wacky world of warmists. One of the things we've seen is the shift to climate change and then global weirding. There's a Climate Depot, and it's with the help of another blog site. They've done at least 30 contradictory pairs of studies. We've said more hurricanes, less hurricanes, boreal forest fires increase, they'll decrease, droughts increase, floods decrease. What they've done now, they've inoculated themselves in the peer-reviewed literature. No matter what happens in our weather, they can point to a peer-reviewed study and say, see, we predicted it. And they credibly can, because it's like astrology. They're predicting everything and anything, and that's what's happening here. There's all these contradictory studies, and they all know, so no matter what happens, it's just as we expected. Media is focusing on the Heartland billboards. Penn State climate ethics, they're saying we're doing crimes against humanity. The media is giving a blackout. And by the way, fame is fleeting. As I was just saying to my waiter, Peter Glick, the other day, no, Peter Glick has done one thing good. He's raised the standard for financial disclosure. Whenever reporters say, who funds Climate Depot? I say, you know what? Do your own work. You impersonate one of our donors, send fake emails, make up a document, and then send it off to the Smog Blog and others. Only then will you find out my finances. You got to take the Peter Glick challenge before we tell you anything. So we have to give Peter Glick, he's raised the bar for people who want to know financing. NASA's ex-con James Hansen is still at it. This is just a couple weeks ago. He's accusing us again of crimes against humanity. Hansen's used the phrase not only for dramatic effect, but because it's accurate, given the enormous scale of the consequences. Why am I showing a house burning? Well, Forbes columnist Steve Zwick said, let's let their houses burn down, the skeptics. We know who the activist denialists are. This is some of the stuff that the media is not covering as we go forward. Lust for totalitarianism, Tom Friedman, lauding China's eco-policies and their one-party rule. They can just impose politically difficult but critically important policies needed to move a society forward. That pesky democracy gets in the way. We have Carrie Norgard, as before mentioned, treated for racist skepticism. She's comparing this to the slavery in the South, and she says it's a kind of cultural resistance that we would expect. This is a woman who said treated. Then they pulled the word treated from the website after she said it. Then we have scientists from New York, human engineering. This is no joke. This is Matthew Lau, Center for Bioethics, NYU. Human engineering, let's make human beings smaller through genetics, inject stuff into pregnant women, use psychoactive drugs to change our behavior, to make us want to reduce our carbon footprints. This is the kind of stuff they're talking about now in our academy, in our universities. Shrink us to reduce our carbon footprint. It didn't work out well for the incredible shrinking man. NASA's ex-con has demanded repentance for evil modernity. Civilization has to end. He endorsed the 2006 book, Time's Up, An Uncivilized Solution. The book called for ridding the world of industrial civilization. Hansen said the author has it right. The system is the problem. This is the lead NASA global warming scientist saying this kind of stuff. I'll be silent there. The media is focusing on the billboards. A new study out by Peter Jacques compares climate denial to Holocaust denial, published in MIT Press Journal. These are prestigious journals publishing this stuff. BBC is comparing us to pedophiles and slave owners just last week. Climate skeptic Joe Romm, as the Mad PBS interviewed James Taylor from Heartland and said, would they interview a Holocaust denier? The media silent. Warmists are touting Genghis Khan as history's greenest conqueror. Why? Because he slaughtered 40 million people. And this was according to the Carnegie Research Institute. I mean, this isn't made up stuff. It's amazing to read the anti-human. I'm sure Václav Klaus will be talking about that. In Australia, same thing, Holocaust denial. I want to point out almost every single one of these Holocaust denial was just the last 10 days. I didn't even go back 2 or 3 weeks. That's how bad this has been. That's how over the top it's been. And this is something, Roger Pilkey Jr., a great quote, there's something about climate that makes people, say, completely, utterly lose their senses. And of course, we see that with people like Ted Turner, who says we'll all be cannibals. Well, coming up in Rio in June, this is very important, and this is a key thing. The UN is now throwing global warming under the bus. Biodiversity is the next issue. Pachauri is actually on record. He's urging time and space. He actually has said biodiversity is, quote, a larger problem. Sustainable development, climate change is a symptom. The head of the climate. Read the handwriting on the wall. Old eco scares never die. They're fading away. They're now trying to roll global warming into this larger issue. AGW is a symptom of a larger problem. This was just said again last week. It's been demoted. The UN throws it. The UN's on record as saying the saving species is now more powerful than climate change. Get ready. We're going to have the Heartland species conferences coming up here in the next few years, right? And of course, it is IPCC-like. The first report had multiple errors in the first chapter alone, and people went diving into it. Greenpeace co-founder Patrick Moore has slammed all the recent, you're seeing it right now in the media, all these species extinction scares coming up in the peer-reviewed process. They're greatly underestimating the new species. He quit his lifelong subscription to National Geographic when they did these quote, 6 mass extinction claims. We're seeing it all over, just like global warming right now as we head into the Rio summit, which I'll be heading down there with CFACT and Lord Monckton. Lord Monckton and I will be at Ipanema Beach to cover this. Someone's got to do it. We're going to be down there to cover this. So, carbon-based energy, I'll finish up here, I think we're out of time, but carbon-based energy has been one of the greatest liberators of mankind in the history of our planet. Let's not demonize it. Let's stand up for it. Let's not come up with wind and solar. People always say, well, let's let wind and solar compete with carbon-based energy. I have news. They have competed, and they had their asses kicked repeatedly. Carbon-based energy wins every time. No matter how much money you throw at it, no matter mandates. It's always Earth Hour in North Korea. Electricity is the difference between the dark age and the present age. That's from Alan Karuba. I thought that was just a great picture that says it all. And of course, we're all North Koreans now. As we ban coal plants in the US, as the UK is already saying the era of constant electricity is ending. EPA is busted. They're poised to regulate what we exhale from our mouth. This is very important. Right now, we may have won the battle. We may have won the politics, the science, and the economics, but we could lose the entire war if the EPA goes forward. The public's not even aware of this. New power plants, all these new regulations based on regulating CO2. CO2 cap and trade today is cap in hand tomorrow. It's basically going to be the EPA doing cap and trade. And then this is again about the EPA. The 3 objectives of the next president, I would say defund much of the state-sponsored AGW science. We've got to rein it in and make sure it's not going to the right places and away from places that employ Chris Mooney. Anyone that has Chris Mooney, who wrote the book The Republican Brain, the American Geophysical Union, this amazing former Al Gore staffers are showing up at all these science organizations, and the money keeps rolling in. We need to reject the IPCC science, like Richard Toll, who was asked to come back for the next IPCC report, refused. He was a lead author. He says that the system basically, he doesn't support the IPCC process. And we must stop the EPA from regulating CO2. That's, again, we could win every battle and lose the war. It's one of the most significant things we have to realize. The public has to be aware of what the EPA is up to. Our energy future is too important to save the planet, or we're all going to die. We need to have a rational energy discussion. That's not to say solar and wind aren't part of an energy mix in the future, but it is to say we can't pick winners and losers, and no matter how many subsidies and government money goes to, as CBS News reported, 80% were Obama campaign contributors for all of these, their energy stimulus. It's just not going to fly. We need energy. We need carbon-based energy. We need to stop demonizing it. We've got the science on our side, and now they're shifting the ground on us, and they're throwing species extinction. We need to have a quick species extinction workshop, because that's going to be all we hear about in the next month and 2 as the UN conference comes in Rio in the middle of June. So with that, I thank you very much. Well, I guess we'll take Q&A with the three of us who spoke, but thank you.